It happened fast. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not the kind of royal declaration that comes with trumpet fanfare or a primetime BBC address. It was quieter than that. Maybe too quiet. But before we continue, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Just 5 minutes ago, Prince William confirmed what many had already begun to suspect, but few believed he would ever say aloud. There is no official path forward for Meghan Markle. No return. No compromise. No future role. Not in the public-facing machine of the monarchy. Not behind the scenes. Not in any whispered, backdoor capacity that the palace might have once considered to save face. No, it's done. And yet, it's not the words themselves that hit hardest. It's who said them. Prince William, the heir. The one who for years tried to preserve the monarchy's integrity without adding fuel to an already explosive narrative. The brother who kept his lips sealed as tabloid storms raged. The man who, for the most part, stayed out of it until now. So why now? Why him? Why step into this storm, deliberately, with a statement so definitive? And maybe most importantly, what does this mean for Meghan? We've heard versions of this story before. The headlines, the public fallout, the Sussex exit, the Netflix deals, the podcast teases, the long-distance family rifts. But this is different. This isn't Harry saying he feels unsafe. This isn't Meghan speaking to Oprah about silencing and suffocation. This is the future King of England saying, there is no institutional role envisioned for Meghan going forward. Institutional, not personal, not emotional. That one word, it says everything. And nothing. What does no institutional role actually imply? Is it a polite rejection? Or a formal exile? A signal to royal watchers? Or a warning to Meghan herself? And here's where it gets complicated. Because buried beneath that statement is something darker, subtler, something that doesn't quite sit right. Was this about protocol? Or was this about control? I want you to really think about that. Because it's not just what William said, it's what he didn't say. He didn't mention Harry. He didn't mention reconciliation. He didn't say this chapter is closed with peace. Or with regret. He said nothing, except that the system, the firm, the institution, is moving on without her. But the question is, why now? Because something triggered this. Something behind the curtain. A moment, a whisper, maybe a threat, maybe a leak. Something made silence no longer safe. And when you hear what was happening behind palace walls, while Meghan was planning her next move, you'll understand why this moment isn't just a rejection. It's a reckoning. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even announced formally through a Buckingham Palace press release. And maybe that's what made it sting more. Because when Prince William finally spoke, it wasn't to the cameras, not to a global stage, not to the waiting royal commentators. It was tucked within a diplomatic response, brief, measured, and unmistakably cold. No official path forward. 6 words. 6 carefully chosen, ironclad words. Not no comment. Not no current plans. Not ongoing discussions. Just no path. And that, for a family obsessed with protocol and polite ambiguity, might be the harshest sentence they've ever allowed out in daylight. So what does that mean? What did William really say, without saying it? Because let's be clear, he didn't mention Meghan by name. Not once. He didn't need to. The timing did that for him. The context did that. And so did the silence around it. There's a certain kind of finality that only comes when someone who's been silent for years finally speaks. And this felt like a verdict. Not a conversation. Not a negotiation. An end. But here's the part one can't shake. William was never supposed to say this. That was the understanding. He was the future monarch. He had to stay above the noise. And for years, he did. Even when Harry's memoir put him squarely in the crosshairs. Even when Meghan's public revelations painted the palace as archaic, cold, even dangerous. Even then, William said nothing. So why now? Why break the silence now? And do it in such absolute terms? Because, according to people close to the situation, it wasn't just William making a statement. It was William taking control of the narrative, of the monarchy's future, of what and who gets to be part of the institution moving forward. And that raises another uncomfortable question. Was this truly about Meghan? Or was this about preventing something else from unfolding? Because here's what sources are starting to hint at. And it's not coming from tabloids. It's from within the palace infrastructure itself. Something was building behind the scenes. A series of quiet meetings. Messages exchanged through third parties. A decision made, not overnight, but over weeks. And when that decision landed, it wasn't just a personal choice. It was strategy. The kind of strategy that suggests the royals weren't just reacting to Meghan. They were preempting her. And what she was preparing next. That's where the Real story begins. They weren't meeting in full view. No public schedules. No press pool loitering outside Sandringham or Windsor. Nothing listed in the court circular. But they were meeting. And behind those closed doors, something shifted. Quietly. Deliberately. Permanently. According to multiple sources familiar with internal royal affairs, senior members of the firm, Charles and yes, William, held what one aide described as a directional alignment meeting in the days leading up to the statement. It wasn't about hashing out personal grievances. Not this time. It was about the institution, protecting it, preserving its credibility, and limiting its vulnerability. Because what was once dismissed as drama had started to mutate into something else entirely. A slow erosion of mystique, trust, and most dangerously, control. And Meghan's name? It came up early. And often. Now, I want to be careful here. This wasn't some royal vendetta in motion. It wasn't about vengeance or punishing Harry's wife for past interviews or headlines. That would be too simple, and frankly, too short-sighted for a monarchy that's lasted over 1,000 years. This was about risk, strategic exposure, and according to two separate insider reports, what emerged from those meetings was not anger, but a chilling clarity. The consensus. There would be no formal attempt to reabsorb, reintegrate, or extend further courtesies to Meghan. Not after the Netflix series. Not after the cut interview. Not after the whispers of a second memoir. This time, possibly from Meghan herself. And not with whispers of a new brand-building initiative in development, one that allegedly circled dangerously close to royal legacy themes. They couldn't afford to wait anymore. So a decision was made. Not loudly, not emotionally, but with the kind of restrained efficiency that only the royal institution knows how to wield. No official role, no public statements of warmth or ambiguity, no space left for speculation. The palace wanted to seal the airlock completely. Now here's where it gets even more chilling. Because according to at least one royal insider, William didn't just support the consensus. He led it. That same source used a word I haven't heard attached to William in this context before, resolute. Which brings us back to the statement itself. Because maybe William wasn't just informing the public. Maybe he was drawing a line in permanent ink. But that only begs the next question. What exactly triggered such a hard stop? Because the royal family doesn't move without reason. And the reason behind this move? It wasn't just about a title, or a comment, or a podcast. It was something much more volatile. And it hadn't gone public, yet. They weren't supposed to find out. Not yet. Not like this. But something slipped through. Something reached the palace. Not through official channels. Not through the press. But through the kind of backdoor warning that sets off alarms behind every curtain at Buckingham and Clarence House alike. An upcoming project. Or rather, a production. Not confirmed. Not announced. But very much in motion. And its central figure? Meghan. Whispers first emerged through the outer circles. PR reps, legal consultants, even podcast producers who'd suddenly gone quiet. Then came the outlines. Leaked. Passed quietly from one media contact to another. Enough detail to alarm, but not enough to prove. A new series or docu-style content reportedly centered on identity, truth-telling, and legacy. The word legacy stuck. It echoed through the walls of Kensington Palace like a quiet threat. Because if there's one thing the monarchy holds sacred above all else, it's not just bloodlines or titles. It's narrative control. And now, Meghan was allegedly preparing to tell her own version of the royal story, again. But this time, unfiltered. No Oprah. No network framing. Just her, and a camera, and an audience that would absolutely listen. And William knew it. He saw it for what it was. Not just a media move, but a challenge. A reframing. A potential rewriting of history in real time. And the firm couldn't afford to let that version gain momentum without a counter. But here's where it gets messy, eh? Because there were also rumors, quiet but persistent, that Meghan had recorded moments. Archival footage. Personal recordings. Conversations. Even, from before the split became official. The kind of material that doesn't just tell a story, it shifts perception. Some of it, according to one unnamed palace aide, could be deeply compromising. Not criminal. Not scandalous in the tabloid sense, but intimate, contextual, the sort of inside perspective that strips away the institution's carefully constructed image. And if released, it wouldn't just complicate the firm's future. It could upend it. So William moved first. His statement was not just a closure. It was a shield, a disclaimer, a line drawn publicly so that whatever Meghan did next, the palace had already washed its hands. No official path forward wasn't about Meghan's role. It was about protecting theirs. But here's the part they didn't count on. She heard it, and the silence that followed, it wasn't retreat. It was something else, something coming. You could almost feel the air change. Not on the surface. Publicly, Meghan said nothing. No response. No statement. Not even a cryptic quote reposted to a social media story. But behind the scenes, according to sources close to her camp, Meghan was shocked by the finality of William's wording. But not surprised by the timing. She had, after all, been preparing to re-enter the public space. Not as a royal, not even as a duchess, but as herself. And now, she was being told, very publicly, that the monarchy had no room left for her. Not in name, not in memory, not in any future plan. But here's the thing. That silence, it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And for those watching closely, it spoke louder than anything else. Because William's message may have closed the door. But it also gave Meghan something new. Distance. And from that distance, she could do what the firm always feared most. Reshape the narrative from outside their control. That's the part that keeps royal advisors up at night. Because when someone no longer needs access, they no longer play by the same rules. William thought he was containing a threat, but he may have unleashed a new kind of power. Because now, Meghan doesn't need approval. She doesn't need permission. She's no longer entangled in palace communications or official optics. And that leaves the monarchy exposed in a different way. Because for the first time, it's not about who she was within the institution. It's about what she chooses to reveal outside of it. And we haven't even touched on what Harry's thinking through all of this. That's a whole separate unraveling. But right now, one thing is clear. The door is closed. But the story? Nowhere near over. And if you think this is the end of the silence, you haven't been paying attention. So here's what I want to know from you. Was William right to cut things off publicly? Or has this just escalated something the royals can't walk back from? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, because the next chapter, it's coming, and it's not going to be quiet.